Man, when are you firing up work?
Start kind of like I guess July 1st is our like official date, but starting this week we have some like courses to do and some orientations and like health and safety briefings and et cetera, et cetera. So there's like a lot of housekeeping stuff that's been needed to be done in between, but like July 1st is kind of like official, like see you there
Totally.
kind of thing.
That's sick, man. So, what's gonna be your role, or how would you describe it? I guess let's go into that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll be starting my first year of a 5-year anesthesia residency. I guess your roles and responsibilities as like an R1 is R1 being like first year resident. And we kind of like abbreviate it as like R1 is your first year resident, R2 is like a second year resident, and then that kind of goes up to R5. And then afterwards, some people will do like a fellowship, so which is like even more like subspecializing, I guess. So for myself, using that as an example, if I were to do like 5 years of anesthesia, then in my 6th year, I could do like a cardiac anesthesia fellowship. So become like subspecialized in doing the anesthetics for cardiac surgery. So that would be like a fellowship that might be another year or two afterwards. But as an R1, you're there, you're a doctor at this point. I put like quotation marks around it because I found that, you know what, it was my research supervisor in my undergraduate who said it the best, that they said like kind of the further on you get in your education, the more you realize that you don't know. And then it's like it becomes this like inverse paradox almost where you have done so much schooling and so much education, but you like feel like you haven't, like you feel
Yeah.
like you have so much to learn and stuff, but you're like a doctor at this point, but you're kind of like a doctor with training wheels and you have a lot of support. So for myself, my first year is they call it like a rotating internship. So it gets you exposure to like a lot of diverse fields of medicine. So I'll do like 8 months of all sorts of things. Like I'll do a month of pediatrics, a month of general surgery, a month of emergency medicine, a couple months of ICU, and then we get like a month or two to kind of pick what we want to do with that. And then I'll do 4 months of anesthesia. So anesthesia is being like my bread and butter. So they kind of keep that in there that kind of, I guess, keep you familiar with your craft while still kind of improving your foundation, your skill sets in these other areas that I won't necessarily be doing that kind of medicine, but all of those topics are going to be involved in what I am doing. So it's kind of important to have like a strong foundation and understanding of the general things there. But my day to day is going to kind of vary month to month depending on what service I am. For medicine, you'll show up, round on your patients, meet up with the team, discuss the patient list. So you'll go through like room this is the issues, this is what we have to do about it. You'll kind of run the list. If you're on more of like a medicine ward, whereas surgery is you'd show up, you'd round on your patients that had surgery like the last day or two, make sure that they're doing well, making sure that they're kind of progressing as you would expect them to. And then you'd go down to the operating room after that and either scrub in or do the consults as they come in. And then for anesthesia, which is my bread and butter, same idea. I would show up. I'll have read about all the patients the night before. So you'll kind of know what's on tap for the day. Go in, set up the room, check the machines, and then you'll go and meet the patient before you're attending. So who's the actual doctor who's kind of overseeing you shows up, get the IV in, get all the IV stuff set up, and then depending on who you're working with, you might kind of explain like, hey, so I met the patient, here's the things that we're concerned about, or there's nothing we're concerned about. There's always something you're concerned about. I shouldn't say nothing you're concerned about,
Oh,
but there's always something. And then you kind of explain like what you want to do for the anesthetic. And then there's going to be some teaching points there. They might say, oh, you considered doing this, or, oh, actually, I normally do it that way. And I think that's kind of one of the beautiful things about anesthesia is there's so many different ways of accomplishing kind of the same thing in a sense, but I guess it becomes your skill set and the different tools you have and have developed and have become comfortable with. So it was kind of the one of the fun things I've learned through
yeah,
that.
man. Well, my mom's working in surgery now, so she's a nurse, and it was funny. She was telling me about how the old school doctors do like the old school anesthesiologist up in Whitehorse does things so much differently than the new people coming out of school, and she's just like, oh, it's so like brutal. They just like knock them out, no care, like then wake them back up. But man, yeah, that's pretty exciting. And then how are you feeling now that the academic side of it is essentially done? I know you've been in and out of residencies, but what's this step now that you're Dr. Blake and
It
moving into the hospital? What's that
is,
step change feel like?
it's like, yeah, I think once again, it'll probably start hitting me once I get in there. Part of it's like a little bit overwhelming because all of a sudden, once you have that title on your name, there's a bunch of responsibility that's attached to that.
Yeah,
I found that like when I was in my fourth year rotations, it would be easy enough to almost use like, oh, I'm just a medical student as like a cop out. Like you had that kind of cop out
totally.
that, oh, I can't write orders. So orders are like if a patient needs something done, you would write it down in an order sheet, and then the nurses or the admin staff or whoever would see that and then kind of order it and have it arranged. So as a
Yeah,
medical student here, we're not allowed writing orders unless you have somebody basically co-signing it or saying like, yeah, you can do that. So if they asked for something and I wasn't sure, like, oh, I don't know if the patient needs that or not, you could have that as like an, oh, sorry, I'm just a medical student. Like I'll have to chat with somebody about that. Whereas you don't really have that anymore because you're a doctor and you can write your own orders.
totally.
So you don't have that kind of like safety net, which is a little bit scary, but it just means that you'll have to kind of find another way to be like, hey, sorry, give me 10 minutes. I'm going to look into that. Or, you know what, I'm going to go and chat with somebody about that before I order it. So
Yeah,
it'll be something else. But yeah, you
totally.
just, yeah. So it's kind of nice because I guess the flip side of that is there was a lot of things that you would see that you've become very comfortable with, that you're like, oh, I know that this is what this person needs, but I'm a medical student and I can't write the orders for that. So I'm going to have to go and hunt somebody down to co-sign this and say like, yeah, you can do that. When in reality, it was like, we both kind of knew that's what needed to be done. So
Yeah,
it's nice in that sense that now you're able to kind of take that step and
the
make those kind of judgment
accountability
calls.
on
Yeah.
yourself. I mean, thinking back on all the jobs I've had, or even power engineering, it's like the more and more accountability I've had, the better job I've had. It's
Oh,
like a job
absolutely.
I've done. Sorry, it's like little human nature, like I don't know, hack or something. Maybe not
Totally.
hack, but
No, I totally hear what you're saying, that it's just like that increased responsibility, almost like kind of forces you to like improve in a sense.
totally.